Good afternoon. My name is Erica, and I'll be your conference operator today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the Intro to Dissection of Litigation Committee's Tips to Substantive Involvement in Dissection conference call. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. If you should need assistance during the call, please press star, then 0, and an operator will come back online to assist you. Thank you. Ms. Christina Liu, you may begin your conference.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christina Liu, and this program is presented by the Young Lawyers Division and sponsored by the Section of Litigation. I serve as the Young Lawyers Division liaison to the Section of Litigation, and I'm also co-chair of the Section of Litigation's Young Lawyer Leadership Program. Over the next few minutes, I would like to tell you about today's presentation, but with first some announcements. As you heard before, all lines are muted, and I will introduce our speakers shortly. If you have any questions you would like to ask, please email them to me at christina.liu1@gmail.com, which is CHRISTINA.liu1@gmail.com. I will be fielding questions that come in through email periodically through this to our speakers instead of holding all the questions to the end. So please just email me at your convenience. Today's program is meant to give people an easy path to getting substantively involved with the Section of Litigation, primarily through working in the Section's committees. We will do an overview of the Section of Litigation and its committees, what the opportunities are to get involved in the Section, some of the leadership opportunities that are in the Section, and some tips on how to get involved and be a fantastic bar volunteer. Now, on to introductions. I would like to introduce our three speakers, after which I will ask each of the speakers to share a little bit more about themselves, how they got involved in the Section, and what they are doing now. First, we have Ryan Blair, who is a partner at Cooley in San Diego, California. Ryan focuses his practice on securities, corporate governance, and shareholder litigation. Second, we have Christina Plum, who is a staff attorney for the Wisconsin Court of Appeals in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and she focuses her work in appeals. She's also an adjunct professor at the University of Wisconsin Law School in Madison. Thirdly, we have Harut Samra, who's an attorney at DLA Piper in Miami, Florida, where he focuses his practice in international dispute resolution and arbitration matters. And as you heard before, my name is Christina Liu, and I'm an attorney at Cole Sadkin in Chicago, Illinois, where I focus my practice in employment and commercial litigation. Now, why don't we move into hearing a little bit more about our speakers. Ryan, do you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan Blair. And I have been involved in the Section of Litigation since way back in 2009. I joined in the 2009-2010 term. I'm involved in the Corporate Counsel Committee of the Section. I started out as an editor of the committee's website. This was so long ago that the newsletters were actually paper newsletters and not electronic anymore. But I was an editor of the website, at working my way in that subcommittee, which became kind of the publications and communications subcommittee as social media became more involved. And I was in that position for about, I believe, 4 or 5 years. And ultimately, I was editor-in-chief of that subcommittee. The year after that, I transitioned to another subcommittee within the Corporate Counsel Committee, the e-discovery and litigation services subcommittee. And then the year after that, I was selected to be a co-chair of the Corporate Counsel Committee itself. I am currently in my second year in that role as a co-chair of the Corporate Counsel Committee.
Great, Ryan. Thank you so much. Christina, do you want to give a little bit more about yourself?
Absolutely. So this is Christina Plum, your second Christina on the call today. And I came to the section via the ABA Young Lawyers Division. I chaired the Young Lawyers Division about 10 years ago, and as I was starting to think about how to continue my involvement in the ABA, I took a look at the various sections and my practice and tried to decide where I might go. So I joined the section of litigation, and then when I wrapped up with the Young Lawyers Division, I became active in the Women Advocate Committee, which is one of the affinity committees of the section. I worked on their newsletter. I sat in on their monthly calls where we talked about different programs coming up. Then I was selected to be part of something called the Young Lawyer Leadership Program, and I also co-chaired the Young Advocate Committee, which was being created at that time. After I finished up chairing the Young Advocate Committee, I spent 3 years chairing something called the Roundtables Committee, which is a support committee which helps our substantive committees put on programs just like that you're hearing today, generally non-CLE programs over the noon hour on a topic of interest to the committees. 2 years ago, I became a member of the council, which I'm still doing now, and a couple years from now, I will serve as something called a managing director to the chair of the section and help him with all of his different activities that he's got planned for the year that he'll be chair, and that's Gene Vance. That's me.
Great. Harut, would you like to give some additional information also?
Sure, and thank you, Christina, as well. I became involved in the section of litigation through really a colleague here in South Florida who recommended that I join and become actively involved in the International Litigation Committee, which at that time was a committee in the section of litigation. It's since been merged into another committee. But I began my involvement through that committee and eventually sort of became the ombudsman of that committee, where I was really involved in pretty much everything the committee was doing. I initially started, though, with programs. So I helped organize programs for different ABA conferences and also related occasional telephone programs, other programs that we did from time to time through the International Litigation Committee, and then eventually became involved in a lot of what the committee did apart from that. And like Christina, I was then accepted into the Young Lawyer Leadership Program, which at the time was a 2-year program that helped fast-track and young leaders into the section of litigation's leadership. After I completed that program, I served for 2 years as the co-chair of the Technology for the Litigator Committee, and for the last year, I've served as the chair of the Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee, and I'm now just beginning my 2nd year in that role as well.
Fantastic. And I'll give a little bit more about myself. I actually have been through leadership in the Young Lawyers Division. I had just finished my term as treasurer this past August for the Young Lawyers Division. But as I was going through leadership in the Young Lawyers Division, I also was going through leadership in the section of litigation. I got involved in the section of litigation through JIOP, which is the Judicial Intern Opportunity Program, which is a program for law students who are typically underserved, who are given opportunities to intern with judges around the country in law school. I was initially a participant, and then after graduation spoke at various different events and conferences on the program. I was then introduced to and urged to apply for the Young Lawyer Leadership Program, in which I was very lucky and got selected on my first year of application. And from there, I got involved in the Young Advocates Committee as the social media subcommittee chair, and also in the Small and Solo Firm Committee as their programming subcommittee chair. So I did a lot of tweeting, social media work, and program development. After doing that for 2 years, I was appointed as Young Advocates, the Young Advocates Committee co-chair, and I served there for 3 years. And after that, I have been the Young Lawyer Leadership Program co-chair and I'm in my second year co-chairing that program. And I also just recently got involved as a subcommittee chair for the the Privacy and Data Security Committee, and I'm overseeing their practice points, which are basically little blurbs on legal developments in that practice area. So that we seem to cover a lot of ground and a lot of committees, which is great. Now, why don't we move to Christina? Can you give us a short overview of the section of litigation structure and kind of where we are with the section?
Absolutely. I mean, I think just from hearing those introductions, you heard the word committee a lot of times. And certainly the focus of today is the fact that getting involved in the committees of our section is often how people begin to become involved in leadership. And so what I did want to do, though, is just take a couple minutes and just go up to 10,000 feet just to give you a little bit more of a picture of how we fit into the broader ABA. I'm going to throw some numbers at you, but I think that by the time we get to the committee part, it will help you understand how you might fit in with the larger picture. So the ABA has just under 400,000 members, including lawyers, law students, and associate members. Within that organization, there are about 3,500 entities, everything from the committees you heard talk of to 7 major divisions and 21 major sections. And it's those divisions and sections that any member of the ABA are welcome to join, and many, many of them, tens of thousands of them, do. The section of litigation, as one of those 21 sections, we're one of the biggest. We have about 36,000 lawyer members and almost 14,000 law student members, which I just pause for a moment for us to think about. There are many states that have fewer than 36,000 lawyers in them, and we have that many in our section. So it's a big section. Many people who are members simply choose to take advantage of membership by reading our publications, by attending seminars, or by attending some of our in-person events. Our major event of the year is something called the Section Annual Conference, and I think we'll talk about that more today. We get about 800 attendees, and a lot of our committees meet there and have programs there, so that's one way people get involved. We also have programs in conjunction with the ABA annual meeting in August each year, and we have regional meetings. Corporate Counsel does a regional meeting, Women Advocate does a regional meeting, and again, we'll talk about those more today. Most people get involved in our section by potentially attending one of those events, but by especially joining one of our 38 committees. And of those 38 committees, we have substantive law committees on topics ranging from products liability to family law, a wide range. We have skills-based committees such as pretrial practice, trial evidence, and we have affinity groups, the Women Advocate, Young Advocate, LGBT litigator, minority trial lawyer. People are welcome to join as many of those committees as they like, and that's where they frequently make their first steps in the section, whether it's writing, speaking, participating in calls, or simply getting together at one of our in-person events. As people take on greater and greater roles, they may ultimately become appointed leaders, and all 4 of us on this call have received leadership appointments. There are about 350 appointed leaders each year who attend our leadership meetings and help to run those committees and other entities in the section. That is my 3-minute introduction to the section, Christina Lou.
Great, that's wonderful. And actually, we've just gotten a question from one of the attendees, and here it is. What drove you to take on leadership roles in the ABA, and how has your involvement benefited you? Ryan, do you want to start us off?
Sure, absolutely. So my situation is a bit unique. So I was an associate. I believe I was a 4th-year associate, and my colleague, Koji Fukumura, who is the incoming chair-elect of the section, asked me that there was said, hey, there's an opening on the Corporate Counsel Committee. Would you like to join? I think many of the individuals that are on this call or that are in leadership are really self-starters and motivated because of some of the benefits that being involved in the ABA and section litigation can provide. And in terms of how it has benefited me, and we'll get into networking, of course, in a bit, but by getting to know attorneys in both in-house counsel and outside counsel across the country, and interacting with them, opportunities present themselves in terms of clients needing, be it representation in San Diego or someone looking for an answer to a question that can really improve your practice as attorneys. And, you know, that benefit, it cannot be underscored enough. I mean, that is, you know, we want to be able to help people and provide, you know, wonderful content that can improve everyone's practice and the profession as a whole. So, you know, look to others in your firm, be it in your own office or other offices, and see if they're involved in the section as well. That can often lead to, you know, kind of an introduction into certain committees within the section and opportunities to join a committee or committees.
This is Ruud. I think that was really a very complete answer from Ryan, but I think the question is a terrific one. First, I agree completely with Ryan with the idea that at the end of the day, many of us are self-starters, like I'm sure those of you who've joined today's call are interested in becoming involved, and I'm sure many of you would be interested in becoming leaders as you become more involved. As far as what I've gotten from this experience, as Ryan said, it really is a remarkable opportunity to meet and get to know people who are at the top of their profession throughout the United States. And I can't think of many organizations that afford that opportunity in the law, to meet the top practitioners in their fields, to meet the top practitioners in their states. I learn something every time I go to a meeting, and it's not just, you know, sitting in and listening to a panel. It's just hearing how these practitioners, you know, phrase their arguments, how they present themselves, how they interact with one another. It really is a remarkable professional development opportunity, and really unlike any other organization that I've become involved in over the years.
This is Christina Plum. I'll just add a couple thoughts. Let me first say that, so I've been involved in bar associations for about 25 years. I started as a law student working with our state bar. They had a liaison program. Being involved in bar associations is one of the perks, the benefits, the fun parts of being a lawyer. It's being part of a larger association. So I could go on and on about the benefits of general of bar participation. But with respect to the section, let me just say this. At this point in my career, having done thousands of hours of bar activities, I always ask myself three questions before I say yes to a bar activity. I ask, will this assist me in my personal development, whether it's my skills, my business, my legal knowledge? Second, will this help the profession or will it help the public? And third, is it fun? And for me, that usually means, does it help me develop and continue to maintain relationships that have become very important to me? The answer to all three of those questions for me with the section has been yes. In addition to doing an awful lot of work on helping each other build and maintain great legal skills, we also have public works. We've been to Haiti. We've done programs where we do pro bono outreach around the country, and we have a lot of fun. And there are a lot of relationships that I've been able to build, even with people I've just met in the last couple of years, that are important to me. So those are the reasons that I continue to be driven to be involved in the section. Christina?
Sorry, I just took myself off mute. This is Christina Liu, and I guess I'll just add on to the rest of our speakers' comments in the fact that I've been able to do very interesting things that I never would have done in my normal day-to-day law practice. whether that's using my creative brain and using things that will help other lawyers in this industry. And I think doing that has been really beneficial to me professionally and personally. I will say that I've gotten many referrals through my work in the section and Young Lawyers Division, and I think those relationships and continuing them nationwide has been very fruitful for me in my involvement in the ABA. But anyway, so why don't we move along to identifying what kind of opportunities there are in the section of litigation. Harut, do you want to maybe talk about some of the opportunities in writing? And then Ryan, please add in when you can with your editor knowledge.
Absolutely, and they're numerous. And I think it's one of the key ways to contribute early on as a young member of a committee or a young leader on one or another of the subcommittees. Every committee in the section of litigation, every substantive committee in the section of litigation has a newsletter. And this typically is 3 or 4 times a year, and it is one of the major parts of what we as a committee do. Our newsletter in the Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee is a quarterly, and we work very hard to work with authors from around the country to present cutting-edge issues as part of this newsletter. The newsletter articles vary in length. You can have news and development pieces that are shorter. You can have more substantive articles that really delve into some cutting-edge or interesting issue of the law within that space. And these really do present, I think, a pretty interesting opportunity to do something small, but also make a really important contribution to your committee. In addition, of course, to the newsletter, which is sent to all the members of every committee. So every person who writes an article for our newsletter has that article sent out to over 1,000 people who are members of our committee. And then, of course, that goes on their website, resume, and it's a great opportunity to build your credentials out as well. So in addition to doing a service to the section, you can also make a real difference in building out your credentials as a young lawyer. There are also opportunities to publish on the website, to publish in larger journals that the section prints or rather sends around to prints and sends to all of its members. And here we're talking about 50,000 members. And then finally, another area where there's an opportunity to publish is just as part of the programming that's done. So for every section annual, as Christina mentioned, or the annual meeting, every one of those programs has written materials as part of its requirement. And this is also an opportunity and something I've done actually on numerous occasions. I've published in each of these ways. I've published whether for the committee newsletter. I've been quoted in the litigation magazine. That's another great opportunity to express your expertise. And I've also written materials for programs that the section has put on. It's a great opportunity, and it really does serve a lot of purposes in addition to helping you become really a point person in your committee.
This is Ryan. That was a wonderful response. As someone who was an editor-in-chief of a committee, as well as a committee co-chair now, there is no faster way to make friends within a committee than to provide content. As Harut said, each committee is kind of evaluated to see if they're staying on schedule in terms of providing a newsletter every quarter, or if they're updating content on the website. Each committee is thirsty, very thirsty for content whenever they can get it. So there's really no better way to kind of make yourself known within the section if you're a frequent contributor to a committee in which you're involved, your practice is associated with. A couple other things. This is more on the editing aspect of it, but being an editor of a committee website provides an opportunity to really have kind of a fast track to get involved in leadership in the way of what's called an editor's symposium. At every fall leadership meeting, there is an editors symposium for editors of committees to kind of discuss kind of new kind of procedures and policies that the ABA is enacting with respect to written content. And, so you get to attend the fall leadership meeting, which is a wonderful opportunity to meet, again, section leadership. And then one last thing that I want to mention, it's more of an example of how providing content can lead to real change and real difference. And this relates to, I believe, a case in New York dealing with intra-firm privilege as to whether an attorney speaking to the firm's general counsel, whether that information is privileged information. Within our committee, someone wrote an article about the decision. It was simply just a practice pointer. It caught the attention of ABA section leadership, and the person who wrote that practice pointer is having a strong hand in developing an ABA, a resolution from the ABA, kind of stating the ABA's opinion on that issue. So it's something where a small article can lead to big benefits to all section members.
Great. Thank you, Ryan and Harut. And just logistically, how long are typically these newsletter articles? How many words? What is the range?
Sure, I'm happy to take this. So the practice pointers, the smaller, they're almost blog-like pieces. Is what the ABA has put forth. Those are generally 250 to 750 words. Think of a short case summary of a new case in a particular area of the law. The longer, articles are generally, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're 750 to probably maxing out around 2,500 words. So a little bit longer, you can provide a little bit more analysis, detail, and implications. So those are kind of the two kind of sizes, so to speak, in terms of articles and content.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ryan. And Ryan, do you want to maybe touch on some of the opportunities and meetings that an eager person can get involved in?
Sure, absolutely. So one of the great things about the Corporate Counsel Committee, and I promise I'm not plugging that committee specifically, is that we host an annual meeting each year. It alternates between the East and West Coast. It is a 2 to 3 day CLE seminar that has a number of programs, upwards of 13 hours worth of CLE credit, as well as various networking events and social events as well, be it a golf tournament or things of that nature. These meetings are a little smaller than, as previously stated, these are a little smaller than the section annual conference, as well as the ABA annual meeting, which is quite large. Last year, this Corporate Counsel CLE meeting had about 300 attendees, and that's split between in-house counsel and outside counsel. And there's a couple of ways to really get involved with these smaller, kind of more regional meetings. I'll touch on regional meetings in a bit. But first and foremost, of course, we have to populate the program, the seminar, with programming. There are emails that are sent out by ABA headquarters requesting program submissions for specific programs. So, for instance, to use Corporate Counsel as an example, in February, an email goes out requesting programs for next year's program, which is in February. If you have an idea for a program, you submit it to the co-chairs of the committee who's hosting the meeting, and if you have a very solid program, the chances are relatively high that you will get selected. These programs usually are in the form of panels, much like this, where there's a moderator and 2 or 3 panelists to put on the program. So that is absolutely an opportunity, a great opportunity to get involved. The Corporate Council meeting is also co-chaired by a number of other committees, the Women Advocate, Minority Trial Lawyer, as well, and the Trial Practice Group. So there's opportunities to be involved in terms of being a meeting co-chair. In this role, it is a relatively sizable role, but you kind of manage the meeting, the selection of programming, the sponsorship push to raise money for the program. So that's a great opportunity. You're dealing with all of the program moderators and speakers. You're dealing with committee co-chairs. And it's really a great opportunity to meet several members of section leadership. So, but first, just attending the meetings themselves are also, again, a great opportunity, face-to-face interaction with members of the committee, in-house, outside counsel, as well as section leadership.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. And then drilling down a little bit further with the panel or program proposals, if you'd like to get involved in those, typically it's a one-paragraph little blurb that kind of has a teaser or a tagline of why someone would want to come to the program, what kind of topics it looks at, and the speakers people want. So, if you're developing these programs, you're coming up with basically something you'd see in a in a program menu. So, sometimes they're really fun to come up with, especially when you're working with other committees and you can think outside the box and see kind of meeting points, and then thinking about great speakers that you want to hear from to come to these meetings. Christina, do you want to maybe talk about the roundtables as we talk about program proposals? Because basically they're similar in nature in the fact of you're developing distant or live programming.
Absolutely. So all of our committees are encouraged to do roundtables, which are not for continuing legal education credit, which is important because that means that you don't have to submit them far in advance. There are not written materials requirements. They're meant to be something that could be done pretty quickly and easily, but be a real benefit for members and an opportunity for members to talk. When these are planned by our committee, sometimes 15 people call in, sometimes 100 people call in. Sometimes they're more formal, sometimes they're much less formal. You might have a single speaker or a panel. But it's a great opportunity to get into programming and planning a program, even if you're very new. And I suspect as people were hearing us talk about proposing programs or writing 2,500-word articles, there may be people on this call who say, I graduated 10 months ago. What possible topic could I present on and where this would be selected when I'm so new? And my response to that would be, even if you think you're not ready to be the speaker, although I could make a case for being able to talk about your first day of work and how that could be valuable for both experienced attorneys and new attorneys, but even if you just want to do more of the organization, a roundtable is a great program because you can identify a topic, identify speakers, and prepare those speakers, just like we did for this call. We had an hour-long call last week. We talked about what we might do today. We kind of talked through how we might address the issue, and then we all call in and do the program. It allows you to take that leadership role. It allows you to talk to people that you might be interested in learning more from. You could pick somebody who just won a case. You could pick both sides of an important case coming up and ask them to be on your panel. There's a role for you even if you are a newer young lawyer. And so doing those roundtables, all committees are encouraged to do them, and many committees actually have a specific roundtables person. But as we'll talk about as we're closing the call, there are ways to just reach out to the committee co-chairs, say what you might be interested in, and if you say, I'm interested in roundtables, they'll get you to the right person to potentially plan that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. And I'll just touch upon a couple of miscellaneous opportunities that you can get involved in also. As a subcommittee chair for social media, you can definitely get involved with the section of litigation in helping with social media. There's a committee that basically handles that now, and they're always looking for volunteers and help in tweeting and Facebook posting and other different kind of visibility for the section at conferences, for their programs, highlighting interesting articles that they may have found that the section is doing, and all the great work that the section does. And also, another opportunity you can get involved in is kind of creating your own programs. In the Young Advocates Committee, I set up a monthly lunch series called The Lunch and Learn, which was basically an open call. We had a 30-minute speaker. It was not recorded, but we live tweeted it, and it got young speakers some experience. They picked the topic. They spoke for about 20 minutes, and I moderated the call and asked them some extra questions, had someone write it up, and, that was a program. It was a monthly member benefit, and, folks that couldn't join in at least could read the tweets or read the tips, and, there's always creative ways to get involved in the section. All right. Now, why don't we move to something that's more logistical, like how do we get involved? How do we find these opportunities? Harut, how did you find your writing or how would you say a young person or an interested member of the public should find writing opportunities within a committee?
Right, and so I get this question every now and then, and I mentioned this on our pre-call, and I don't mean to be flip about it, but when I'm asked, how do I get involved, my first answer to that is you get involved, which is to say you reach out and you try to contact, whether it's a committee chair of the appropriate committee or if you have a colleague or a friend or some other contact who's a member and you're interested in becoming involved. If you don't have that, you now can consider yourselves to have 4 friends and colleagues who you can reach out to on the line who will help plug you into the right committee. I'm sure any of us would be happy to do that. But the first step really is just to raise your hand and to express an interest. And I assure you that any of the committee chairs that you reach out to are going to be very happy to have a young practitioner who's interested in becoming not only a member of the section of litigation, but a member of their committee. As far as how to become involved publishing, whether it's participating in roundtables like this or other similar programs, these are all things that you'll have the opportunity to do. It really will depend on what your interests are. If you like speaking, if you like organizing programs, there's nothing to prevent you certainly from getting involved in a committee and contributing in that way. Publishing is an obvious one that we discussed a few moments ago, and Ryan gave you some great examples on how to do that. And it was a very important part of my becoming involved initially. I think it's a terrific way to take that first step. But even before you take that step, the first step really is find a person, send them an email, raise your hand, tell them, call me. I want to help.
Christina, can I add something to that?
Sure, please.
So when this call ends, if you have 5 minutes and you are not currently involved in the section and you're intrigued about it, what I would do is I would Google ABA section of litigation. We should pop up as the first entry. Click on us, and you will see on the left-hand side of that screen, one of the categories is committees. And if you click on that, you're going to see the 38 general enrollment committees where it says you can join, it says about, it says news, and you can explore all 38 of those. You can see the types of issues they're considering. You can see the list at the bottom of who their leadership is. Really look at the descriptions and think about the committee that might best meets your needs or your skills, whether it is looking at a substantive area of the law or one of those skills committees like trial practice, trial evidence, or one of the affinity groups, or maybe more than one.
Great. And what if you are not quite sure where to go or what to do? Who's the catch-all?
It's an interesting question, Christina, and I think that you could take some different strategies to that, right? You can try to get involved maybe in a couple different committees that seem interesting. You can try to get involved in something that maybe isn't directly on point, but that's close enough. If your interests are sort of broad at this point, and certainly for a lot of young lawyers that is the case, there's a lot of value potentially in getting involved in a couple different committees and maybe getting to know some of the people, maybe jumping on any of the calls they might have. Our committee, the ADR committee, has monthly calls, for example, and if anyone on the line wanted to join that, all you'd have to do is ask me, and I would send you the invitation. So, there are a couple different things. It depends where you are in your practice, where you see your practice going. And if you're still kind of in that I'm not sure phase, this is a great way to find a mentor outside of your firm who can help with that process.
Wonderful. And I guess there are going to be times when the folks you reach out to don't, you're met with radio silence or it's dropped through the email. What do you suggest for folks who, don't get an instant response?
Just to chime in again quickly, wait a couple days and send a second email. And so persistence also is valuable. I mean, I think that by and large, the members of the leadership of the section of litigation got there because they're responsive, energetic, and engaged. If you find that, you emailed, some of these committees have even up to 3 co-chairs. Most have 2. If you emailed one co-chair, email the other co-chair. But if you're not hearing back, at least with me, sometimes maybe I'll be a little bit behind on my email. But if I get that reminder email 2 or 3 days later, if only out of sheer embarrassment, I will respond to it promptly.
And let me just echo what Harut said. He said it quickly, so I want to make sure you all heard it. Honestly, the 4 of us are really inviting you to reach out to us. And that's one way that a lot of people do get involved in bar activities generally. It takes one person saying to another person, come to this meeting to me, or I heard you're interested in this, let me do an email introduction for you. So we really want to be resources for you. The Young Advocates Committee in particular of the section is also designed to hear from people, whether it's law students or whether it's young lawyers who want to get involved in the section. So they may also be able to help funnel you into the other sections or the other committees as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Now, once you've picked up an assignment, maybe we can offer some tips on how to shine in your bar work. Christina, do you have any advice on how to be a great bar volunteer?
I do. The first thing I would advise is that you seek out a discreet task. It's very hard to just say, I joined the committee, and you're not sure what you're supposed to do. Whether it's you're going to write a small blog-like article, sometimes called a news and development piece, whether it's you're going to help somebody organize a round table, whether you're going to agree to sit at a table at the section annual conference and represent the committee, whatever it is, make sure you identify a discrete task, do it well, do it on time, and seek feedback on your performance. Not right then, perhaps, but hopefully you will meet people that you, whether it's your editor or someone you've gotten to know on the phone, and ask them for some feedback. It's one of the best ways to learn about how you're doing and how to learn to be a leader. Very few people ask for feedback, and most people do not feel comfortable offering feedback if it's not solicited. So seek out the feedback and then volunteer again. And I guess my biggest don't is please don't be that radio silent person. If you take on a task and you can't complete it, let them know. I volunteered to run this round table. I'm getting buried at work. Is there someone else who can take this over? Be responsive. one of the big reasons you, for professional development purposes, get involved in a section is to make a reputation for yourself. And how terrible it is when the reputation you make is this person volunteered to do something and we never heard from them again. An actual negative reputation, right? It'd be better that you had never volunteered at all. So commit to it, do your discrete task, do it well, and then decide if you want to take on another one, and hopefully you will.
Great. Ryan, what have you seen with any outstanding subcommittee chairs or members that have done that have set them apart?
Sure. So I can speak to a number of former editors of our committee that wanted to join a more substantive subcommittee within corporate counsel and proposed an idea or a plan that is linked to that subcommittee. So just for example, one editor wanted to join the litigation management subcommittee, which deals with issues associated, billing, new billing practices, and other opportunities to manage litigation, make it more efficient for clients. So he came together with a plan to bring in a number of in-house counsel to present at the Corporate Counsel CLE seminar, and had a 6-point plan how to put that plan to action. There was absolutely zero chance we would say no to him wanting to join that subcommittee, and he's thriving in that role now. I can't speak highly enough about the comments about picking a discrete task and acting on it, as opposed to just saying I'll agree to provide content, right? I think it's a lot better to be specific, to be direct, not necessarily bite off more than you can chew, particularly early on, and excel at those tasks one by one. You steadily build a reputation within a specific committee, and as you progress within a committee, you can take bigger tasks, or you can, and again with the reputation that you have, it'll be all that more beneficial to your involvement in the section.
Kurt, anything else to add?
This notion of reputation is actually an interesting one, and I think that it's exactly how I really became involved. It's precisely what happened to me. I was persuaded by a friend who was at the time the co-chair of the International Litigation Committee, who gave me some responsibilities, and I followed through on them, and I did them well, at least well enough, and then he kept giving me more stuff, and that's how it started, and he was ultimately the person who sponsored me, or rather my application to the Young Lawyers Leadership Program. But it all began with, asking for that discrete task that Christina mentioned, and developing a reputation, just as she described, within the committee, and then that is what subsequently has led to the opportunities that bring me to where I am today as a member of the leadership and the co-chair of the ADR committee.
Great. Thank you. Since we're in our last quarter of this call, I want to maybe have us touch upon section leadership for a little bit for those that are interested. Christina, could you maybe give a broad overview of who is included as a section leader?
Sure. So there are about 350 people who are considered appointed leaders of the section. That was the number when you add it all up. So it's chairs, co-chairs and chairs of committees. It's people who serve on some of the support committees, like those who support the content online, roundtables. We haven't talked about sound advice, but that's recorded programs that are created by committees. There are also certain task forces that look at particular issues. Some of the good works that we talked about, you might have a task force that looked at pro bono opportunities and things that the section could do. And then we also do have a council where people are elected to the council. There's probably fewer than 50 or so people when you add up all the different liaisons and things like that who serve on the council. What I think is maybe a little misleading is to say you're in leadership and not to think of yourself as a leader if you are running a subcommittee or if you're an editor of a newsletter. You are absolutely still leaders. Sometimes that phrase within our section is used to denote those who attend our leadership meetings where we get a lot of our planning for the year done. As Ryan mentioned, our fall leadership meeting, in fact, includes our 350 appointed people, but also many committee members who are tapped and asked if they want to come to that particular meeting because they work on publications or work on some other areas. So our 350 or so leaders, those are the ones who attend our fall meeting for leadership, a January meeting for leadership, and then one meeting that's held either in the spring or the early summer as well.
Great. And for those that are interested, basically the ascension to being a committee chair can either happen, as we've mentioned, through the Young Lawyer Leadership Program, which is a 2-year kind of fellowship, so to speak, for young lawyers and they get partial funding to the 3 leadership meetings every bar year, as well as some discounts on registration fees for the section annual meeting. That is a highly competitive fellowship program, and that application opens in April, and it's open for about 30 days, and selections are made in the spring. Typically, folks that are selected into that program have a good record within the section of work or within the Young Lawyers Division, and we have also expanded our kind of review of bar work to include state and kind of local bars as well. But we're looking for workers that will add great value to the section of litigation. So if the age cutoff for that is 35 at the time of application. So if you are 35 or under, you are eligible to apply. So that's a great opportunity to get fast-tracked into those leadership meetings and to be part of that appointed leadership. The section anticipates putting on another program like this one for tips on how to get your Young Lawyer Leadership Program application together and to make it as best you can.
Christina, can I just add something to that? As someone who did the Young Lawyer Leadership Program, it's a 2-year program. It is fantastic, but they only pick 4 people per year. And so I would not want people to leave this call thinking, I'll wait till May, I'll apply for that program. If I don't get it, I'll wait another year. If I don't get it, I'll wait another year. It's competitive, and there are, in fact, getting involved in the section is a way to show your commitment to the section and your interest in the section. But even if a person is not picked for that program, there are a lot of other ways for people to get involved that we've described today that I hope that they'll pursue as well.
Yes, and I didn't want to have folks not get involved just because of that program. That's one of the many ways to get involved. And since we're towards the end of our program, do we have any final thoughts? Christina, do you want to start?
Sure. Given how much I presented myself as a bar rah-rah today, my final comment might seem a little odd, but I guess the comment that I want to share, especially because I know we have primarily young lawyers on the phone, is do remember that you are a lawyer first and a bar volunteer second. And it's not something I say lightly because I've told you I've spent literally thousands of hours on bar activities over the last 25 years. But it is crucial at the beginning of your career that this just be one piece and that you are focusing on developing the skills and the clients and the relationships at work that help you be a successful lawyer. I believe strongly that being a bar leader can help you do that, but sometimes it can be tempting to do the fun stuff of bar activities, and you have to make sure that whatever you're committing to is something that fits in with the work you're being asked to do and with the employer that you're working with and that they're comfortable with it. At the section of litigation, we have volunteer opportunities, even if you are never allowed to leave your office or even if you want to travel 20 times a year. We have activities where you are asked to do something that will take an hour, and we have activities that will take you 40 hours. So there's a wide range, and I just really encourage you to pick something, do it well, and pick something that fits in with the rest of your practice so that you can be a successful lawyer and a successful bar volunteer.
Wonderful advice, Christina. Ryan, do you have any closing thoughts?
Sure, absolutely. And I kind of want to piggyback off of Christina's comments. Listen, the same skills that allowed you to succeed in law school, to succeed in your early years as an attorney practicing law, are the same skills that are going to allow for you to be successful within the section of litigation. It's not rocket science. It's being attentive, being detail-oriented, being responsive, and being willing to step up and to help and to volunteer. That's really what this is. This is volunteering. We're not adding this to our billable hours, but you're on this call, so I think you understand that. But it's largely the same skills that you've been using for now a handful of years are the skills that's going to help you be successful as you navigate your way within the section. And my last comment would be, be patient. My involvement, I've now been involved for probably not as long as for the others on the call, but it's a process. You start in one position, you build your reputation, and you slowly progress forward. By being patient, it allows you to enjoy the company of wonderful, wonderful people who are involved in the section, many of whom are my closest friends. So good luck, and I'm here for you if you have any questions whatsoever.
Harut?
Yeah. Thank you, Christina. And I really do agree with everything that's been said throughout the call, certainly, but on this last point as well. I just want to emphasize that this is not one size fits all, and that's sort of the next step, at least to me, from what Christina and Ryan had mentioned. I agree with everything that they said, but this is really something that can fit your time. How much time you have available. You don't have to attend every meeting. When you first become involved, you can just write an article every now and then. And as Ryan mentioned, some of those articles really only need to be 200 words and can be based even on maybe some case that you came across on your research. If you want to be more involved and in the future want to run the section annual conference, that's certainly going to take a lot more involvement. But this is something that can be tailored. It can be tailored to the time that you have available. It can be tailored to your personal interests. I think I've always been an advocate of engaging in order to really kind of maintain your passion for these things. And I know every time I interact with my colleagues in the section of litigation, many of whom are among the most passionate about our profession who I know, I walk away more passionate about what I do every day as well.
Wonderful. And I'll just add a final piece also. Along those lines, it's not even year by year you can pick how much involvement you want to have. You can kind of tailor your bar involvement with your career. There may be things that are happening in your personal life that you don't have as much